It is January 10th, 2016, and I'm bringing you a video of me working on issue 5. A couple quick notes. I have set up a Patreon. I am going to show the process of me making probably the next couple issues at least. I will be just uploading the pictures. I might put some dialogue, some story, tell you what's happening and whatnot. But I pretty much am just going to be putting them up for free. You can check the link down in the description to my Patreon if you just want to follow me there. I'm not asking you to donate, but if you want to follow along with the story, go ahead and do that. So let's get into it. It's a new year, brand new video. I've realized that I've kind of fallen behind a little bit, and I haven't been keeping you guys up to date. It is time to change that for sure. I have started a new kind of talk amongst artist friends, and I just want to get some things out into the world. I'm going to be asking in the Hundreds group. If you're not aware, the Hundreds is a challenge I did last year. Kevin Cross started it, where he wanted to just take half hour every day, put that time aside, and work on his own project, his own story he wanted to tell. And from that, he's done 3 runs of 100 days so far. I did 2 100 days back to back, and from there I've just been on a breakneck pace, basically, on making my own story. I realize it takes about 2 months to make an issue, and that's without all the Kickstarter and everything else besides it. And then alongside of all that, you have the story itself. I never forgot is my story that I want to tell myself. It is basically a drifter following him in the world, post-apocalyptic world, riddled with zombies and everything else. And as you can tell, the page I'm doing right now is when one of the 4 basically main characters, following his storyline for a few pages anyway. This is page 12 that I'm working on right now, and at that point I am halfway done with the 5th issue, just inking so far. So you're following the story of this drifter, and I realized that it's going to be 13 issues long. Last year, 2015, starting out this project about a quarter of the year in, I was able to get 4 issues done. That's pretty good, decent speed, especially for starting out, putting them to press, getting them printed, everything, and I'm off to a good start. I'm not nearly as well defined as many artists in the culture so far, but something I seem to notice looking at other people's comics is that a lot of them are very dark. And I don't mean dark like they use terribly dark colors or whatever, but they use a lot of black ink, and they basically fill out a page 50-50%, 50 white, 50 black, and that seems to be about normal. Since getting into it, doing my own series, I really noticed this about issue 4 and realized that I wanted to do a little bit more blocking out, but I didn't want to make the page so dark that it was hard to read, and I don't know. It just occurred to me that I wanted to keep this story very light colored and use a lot of colors in my pages. If you see any of the pages, I have them listed on my own website, theoxenplayground.com. You can also read those on my blog at theoxenplayground.wordpress.com. If you go there, there's a link at the top that says I never forgot introduction. That'll get you started. Actually, I'll put that link to that page down below so you can start reading from issue 1. You can see I use a lot of bright colors. The first issue, basically just getting details down, building this world, and from there 2, starting to figure out how to make more focused ideas for the pages and whatnot, and then 3, it really gets into the story and starts filling in the world and all the details that I left behind. 4 basically concludes with all of the 4 main characters being set into this world, and at that point we're going ahead. Those first 4 issues are the trust arc, and now this 5th issue is the start of the love arc. It will be basically the next 5 issues, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and I'm going to get those done this year, whether it breaks me in half or not. So along with that love arc, I am currently working on a couple other projects, but those aren't taking my focus right now. I also realized that doing these 13 issues, 2 months apiece, it's definitely going to take me about 2.5 years to complete. Once I get onto it, I knew it was going to take 3 years. So I have 3 years to kind of build my own style, figure out this inking game a lot better, work on my storytelling and whatnot, and I have at least the next 5 issues planned out, very well detailed. That last arc, that's going to be the respect arc, and that's probably where everything's gonna come together, and chances will be, or risks and rewards will be met from these 2 years at least of making this comic. So along with this, I have a lot of plans for this year as well. I want to do a podcast. I want to come up with videos. I want to keep you guys in line with what I have going on in my world. So I started doing these videos as well. You'll be able to. I'll record at least a video a week, updating you on progress, what's going on, show off some of the stuff I'm working on. Since this is issue 5, at this point, I'm sure you either know that you want to follow along the story, or you're just kind of hesitant to take a chance on the story. So I am doing my damnedest to make this story as accessible to people as I can. With that being said, I run Kickstarters for every issue to get the get the issues printed themselves, and then I send them to Kickstarter backers, and then I have some left over that I can sell at conventions and whatnot. But I'm going to be changing that up a little bit with this first Kickstarter. This first Kickstarter, I'm going to basically doing everything at cost. Hopefully I can get more people drawn into it, donating. I'm also going to be doing a 2-issue run for this Kickstarter, which will mean it'll be for issue 5 and issue 6. I'm going to try and get those at cost to people that support the Kickstarter. I also want to make a very cheap option so people can pick up the story and get one of the new issues as well. So they can see the high quality version, but they can get caught up in the story as well. With Christmas, I took a lot of my funds and took some gambles, and hopefully that's going to see fruition with this first Kickstarter as well. Hopefully people got the trust arc for Christmas from their friends, and it makes them intrigued and they want to follow along on where the story's going. With all that being said, now that we're halfway through issue 5, I am looking forward to coloring this whole issue. It's going to be very, very colorful. After these next couple pages, it goes back to Zeke and V, and they're on the road now. They've left the bunker, and now moving more in the direction of Zeke's actual quest. This whole story follows him basically, but it kind of ties these other lives together to him. I don't want to reveal too much, but you will be seeing those at least by the end of the month on my Patreon. I'm doing just the penciled pages right now. I'm hopefully taking good enough pictures and blacking them out. before I do inks, my pencils, I do a lightish blue pencil, which you can probably see right there. It's basically what I'm working over. But along with that, it doesn't show up on camera all that well. So I've got to work on that and make it much more noticeable for people to see. Yeah. So hopefully, I hope you're intrigued enough to follow along with the story. Now let's get back to a couple of the other things I want to do this year. Along with a video every week, keeping you up to date on what I have going on for the issue. I will be doing a couple podcasts. I want to do some motivational speaking, I guess. And a lot of that stems from the 100-day challenge. When I started doing the 100 days, it was a very active group, and I want to keep that going because I think people coming to the group will see that positivity and support and want to actually go gung-ho into this whole project. I know it's changed my life incredibly and immensely this last year, that I want people to experience that as well, because honestly at this point I couldn't see myself doing anything else because I'm having such a good time with this whole project. So along with that, the other day, actually to start off this year, it was a little rough for me. Had some family troubles. My dad was finishing up radiation treatment for prostate cancer. He also had a scare in the hospital for some heart murmurs. Some of his medications were affecting his body a little bit more than they should have been. They finally got him all patched up and worked on, and he's doing well. He's home now, done with radiation, so we can focus on everything else. Basically, that took away the first week of January. So I have been hitting it hard these last few days. If you follow me on Snapchat, I'm Samurai Ox there, on Twitter and Tumblr, everywhere Samurai Ox. You can follow along and actually see these pages like probably a couple weeks before you would actually see them posted to Patreon. I'm having a good time showing off the pencils before I actually ink the page. Yesterday this page took probably about 5 hours to ink. It is a lot of intricacies, and you can see while I'm working right now, a lot of the details weren't filled in, so I had to do those while I was inking the page, and that just seemed to take a lot more time than I had figured it would. Which is alright, because at the end of the day, the page looks awesome, and I'm excited to get started on the next page. So, getting back to this 100-day group, I am starting to ask motivation and questions to spur some conversation there in the group. This week, when I got back from bringing my dad and mom home from the hospital, I figured it really needed a good kick, and I asked everybody what their motivation was for doing the 100 days. Mine obviously was I wanted to do something more with art. I had been painting for about a year and a half at that point. I was planning on getting into oil-based paint last year, and started playing around with that and realized that the amount of time it took for oil paintings to dry and everything, I wasn't looking forward to that, and I definitely didn't have the space to set them aside so they could dry while I waited to work on them again. So at that point, I had come up with a story idea, and I told it to a couple friends. They told me to get on it because they wanted to read it as soon as possible, and that started me on this journey of learning how to make this story come to life. I followed a couple artists, Mark Crilly, Will Terrell, Jake Parker to start off with, and they were basically all saying the same thing, that there's no better time to do it than now, and nobody's going to care more about your projects than yourself, so you might as well do your own projects. I am unemployed currently, but this new comic series has brought new life into everything I do. I am seeing some return on that. I'm also getting some freelance work on the side. And also there's some projects in the wake that I will probably be discussing in the next month or so. But with all that being said, unemployed's a relative term because obviously I can dedicate at least 10-12 hours to working on my own comic series, which each page probably takes between 2 and 4 hours. Like yesterday, I didn't have a lot of the details down, so it probably took me a little extra time doing that. It took me 5 hours to do that page. So learning about all this inking process and drawing figures better and everything, I was watching Will Terrell video, and he pointed me in the direction of Kevin Cross, which he had just started his second 100-day run of making comics. Once I started watching those videos, I was hooked. I went back and watched the first 100 days, and at that point I knew I had to do it for myself to just make sure I stuck with this project. And I can guarantee you, if you're thinking about doing this project, I highly suggest it. That first 100 days was monumental because sticking with it every day, you really see how much work has to go into it, and it really gives you some added value, seeing all those works come to fruition and seeing how many in your life actually want to see you succeed. Up to that point, I didn't think very many wanted to, but as soon as I started making this comic, started talking about it more, started dedicating a lot of work and effort into it, a lot of people were excited to see it blossom and bloom, basically. So at that point, I got into it, did the first issue, was working on the second issue, decided to table at a convention, and at that point, there was no turning back. That first convention, I made my booth back, which was for Wizard World, and it was a $300 booth, which was pretty unheard of at that time. I only had the first issue, sold the crap out of it, got my pitch down and everything, started talking to people, and I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do. Going back, I knew this would be 13 issues, and I knew I'd have plenty of time to get to know people in the business, so I got back to work, and by the end of the year, I had the 4th issue done and shipped out to everybody that had backed the Kickstarter. Going into 2016, I had finished the roughs for issue 5 a few days before New Year's Eve, and then I did a lot of driving, a lot of sleeping to get my parents back from the hospital, and that brings us to this point. I'm super excited about what this year has yet to hold. I'm especially doing 5 issues this year, and along with running Kickstarters, doing some conventions, all this, I hope you follow along this journey a little bit longer. It's certainly going to be pretty exciting, so I'll bring you along. I'm planning on doing a video every week talking about motivation and everything. The comments down below, tell me what you're working on, what's motivated you to start that project, and let's start a conversation. Let's start some dialogue. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm most active on Twitter, so if you want to talk and BS around, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is Samurai Ox, and I will let you enjoy the rest of this video right now. I will be back certainly next week for sure, and I will let you see some more of the progress. I'm pretty excited for the pages coming up, so I'm excited to decide what page I will be recording next of me inking. I'm sure I'm going to be inking into next week, probably mid next week, especially with yesterday's page taking 5 hours. I'm sure the next couple of them will take about the same amount of time, but I'll leave you with that. Remember, comment down below what projects you're working on, what most you're looking forward to 2016. Let's start a dialogue, and I will catch you next week with the next video. I hope 2016 is treating you well, and just wanted to say thanks again for stopping and paying some attention to my channel. Later.